Welcome back to another episode of Simplyrobotix, the podcast, a podcast exploring the animation industry one episode at a time. I'm your host, Monique, and as always, you can find me on all social media platforms at Simplyrobotix, Simplyrobotix. This is another episode that is being sponsored by Autodesk, and it's, I'm making sure that the sponsored episodes are really giving you the type of content and conversation that y'all enjoy. Today's guest is going to be Courtney Pure. She's someone that I attended college with. She's one of the few Black girls that were also doing animation, even though she was in 2D, I was in 3D, that I was able to meet in college and befriend. And it's just so dope, I think, because of those two things. And she's from New York too. She's from Long Island, as you'll hear her say. I think because we had some of that shared experience that we've been able to maintain a friendship now for almost 10 years since graduating college. Courtney has such an interesting career journey. She is a freelance art animator, or she's always worked as freelance, where I've worked more staffed positions. So I always like being able to talk with her and just hear and learn from her experiences. She's also, like me, post-college, did a whole bunch of odd jobs, maybe odd to people outside, of course, of not only of our industry, of just it. I mean, it happens when you go and you study something so specialized, and some people are those cases where they get the job in the studio right out of college. We were not those people, and I can't really say that it's race and or gender that played a part in that, but I just feel it's very important to keep hearing stories, or to have people keep sharing their experiences, their journey, being like, no, I didn't get the job right out of college. I didn't even get the job 1 or 2 years once I got out of college, because that's actually what we need to hear. I'm saying we, but that's actually what people that are coming out of college and people that are trying to break in the industry need to hear. It's not you. It's just in this unfortunate thing of being in animation. And then another thing that I personally love being like, Courtney, speak, talk about this, talk about yourself, is because Courtney, a Black woman, has found an intersection of science and animation. And she gets into talking about that in the interview part or whatever, about, what that experience was like, fusing science and her passion for science and her passion for art. So I just thought that it would be a really great episode, and I think y'all are gonna really like it and enjoy it. So I'm not gonna keep blabbing for much longer. Let's just get into it. Thank you for joining me today and this evening. Could you tell my listeners a little bit about where you're from?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I've been a longtime listener and really enjoy the show. So my name is Courtney Pure. I'm from Long Island, New York. And I've lived on Long Island my entire life. I'm a native New Yorker, and yeah.
Next question I have is, this is part of our backstory, but did you go to school for the industry that you are currently working in?
Yes. So right now I actually make animated stickers and GIFs. And I went to the School of Visual Arts and I studied traditional animation. I graduated in 2011, which is almost 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
this year. I had this realization 2 weekends ago, and I was like, 10 years? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I remember when the 10 year for my high school was, and I was just like, oh my gosh, 10 years of high school. And now it's just all of a sudden it's 10 years college.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And for me, it just feels super weird because I feel like I'm now starting to get settled in the industry and in my career or whatever. And it's dang,
yes.
Oh, man.
Oh yes, I definitely feel that. Like I've gone through different iterations from like when I graduated high school and I graduated college, like everything was not exactly how I was planned, but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean,
yeah.
on that note, what was your first job like ever? And what was your first industry job?
So my first job, like ever, I worked at a movie theater. Like when I was in high school, I had like heard somewhere it's just like, oh yeah, everyone that has like worked in film, whether they're like an actor or whatever, they always worked at a movie theater. So I was just like, all right, cool, I can do this. So I worked at a movie theater pretty much all the way up until like second year of college. And it just kind of grew too much, kind of going back and forth from the city because it was about like an hour 15 minutes both ways.
Mm.
But so that was like my first job. And then after that, I did TA actually at SVA. And I really enjoyed that. I learned that I really loved like teaching people and like just exchanging ideas and things like that, and learning that like not only am I teaching them, but they are teaching me
Oh.
things. So even though we were in like close, age range, because when you're a TA, I think we started like junior year, so it's just like it's like first years and stuff like that. So yeah, it just felt really good to do that. And then once I graduated college, my first job was actually as a production assistant in live action film. So we basically did, it was like commercials. So they're called like interstitials. Like they're kind of a little bit shorter than commercials. And they appear in like different places all over the net, whether it was just like on the website or actually on TV. But the companies that I worked with were like the A&E networks
Mm.
area. So like Lifetime, Discovery Channel, Cooking Channel. Cooking Channel was my favorite because we got to taste everything after
Oh,
the end.
nice.
Um, yeah. So yeah, so that was my first like industry job, even though it wasn't like in animation. But I did get to do some things like I did on one of the cooking channel shoots that we did. I got to do like the storyboard for it. So like even though I was a PA, like they were allowing me to do like a few things that I did learn, creatively within my job, because even through my entire time there, because I worked my way up from being a production assistant to production coordinator. It's all administrative stuff, so it's
Right.
not creative. But it was a small team, so they allowed me to do some of those things, which was really cool. So,
Yeah, that is cool. So you had quite a journey after your time at
mhm.
SVA, and we have that you worked in animation, you did web development, social media management, production management, sustainable agriculture, and tech support for the non-technical. Please tell us a little bit about how or like what was happening, because like this is also just such a real thing. Just gonna
Mhm.
interject and say a little bit about myself. I
Mhm.
did
Mhm.
also work in a movie theater. This was after college. I did film festival. I did stuff with Mercedes Benz Fast Fashion Week, like actually like us putting up the chairs and like making it look pretty or
Oh,
whatever, and filling up gift
yes.
bags. I worked in a shoe store, and I've done so much random stuff, and that I just
Mhm.
don't want it to be like lost on people that you have such a linear path after college. Like it's kind of like they say, like a spiral staircase. Like you're
Oh, yes.
advancing, but you're kind of going around in a circle at the same time. So yeah, tell us a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
about all those different things that you've done from whatever you can feel. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's like super important is like especially in art and animation and things like that, or film, like in New York, there are no like unions or anything like that. So you're basically like on call. And you kind of get a job here, you kind of get a job there. So to kind of go through that trajectory of like my spiral staircase to where I am now is basically, I worked for that company for about 2.5 years. And then after that, I didn't have any more work with them. So they basically like hired someone else. And I was just like, oh, okay, like I really was kind of like thankful for it because I wanted to do a more creative job anyway. So it was kind of like I didn't want to get comfortable and also put into a box of like, you know, you're just going to be like in an administrative role because I feel like that happens a lot, especially with women.
Yep.
Well, it's also because like I feel like at least some of the people that I work with, they always just said like, oh, we're just very good at organizing things, you know, and kind of just like zeroing in and saying like, this is what needs to be done. This is what needs to get out and, you know, etc. But I really kind of hated that idea. Like, I'm just like, but no, I want to do like the filming. I want to see more like women sound people,
Yep.
you know, things like that. So anyway, basically I stopped working with them. I didn't have any more gigs with them. And then I kind of hit like this weird lull where I was like applying to animation studios. And what kind of like held that up too was that because I was working in an administrative role as a coordinator, I was always the last person out. So I was not really doing like any type of animating or drawing because I was just exhausted. I was getting home like super, super late. And like that was another thing where it's just like, you know, people are like, oh, you know, like make time to kind of like, you know, put these things into place. Like I just could not, like I was burnt out.
Yeah.
So by the time I left that company and then I started to apply to other animation studios, I also had to like build my portfolio a bit more because I just had like my thesis film and like a kind of like 2-year gap of like not really anything drawing or animated related. So I applied to studios. Most didn't get back, or they got back like a year later, which
Oh,
is like,
tell me about that.
oh, it still happens today. I have still applied to places and they still will get back to you a year later, which is really crazy. But it seems to be like a very weird standard. It's like at least, I would say anywhere at least from like 6 months to a year
No lie, I
that
got
I've like,
an email a couple weeks ago from a company I applied to in 2019. And I didn't
oh
even
my
remember I
God.
replied to them. They provided that information to me. They're like, yeah, we had your resume on file from 2019 when you applied. I don't know if you're still looking for an opportunity. I'm like, yeah, I needed that job in 2019, actually. Like, that's when I needed
Yeah.
that job. So it's so weird that that's just a thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really hard because I mean, as soon as you graduate school, like I took out student loans and everything like that. I needed a job to pay my bills, like, and like I had moved once I graduated school too. I had got my first apartment, so that was like a whole nother thing that was like in the realm of like I really have to get a job.
Yeah.
So basically, I worked kind of a similar thing. I worked retail and then retail is just I did it like a little bit in high school, but then like I went back to it after college and I was like, I can't do this. Like
It's
I
awful.
have to. It is really bad.
It
Like,
shouldn't be awful, but it's awful.
yeah. And like even the people there, like I made some like really cool friends and uh it was all like a means to like get out and do the things that they wanted to do, you know, like no one was really there trying to like stay full time. So, you know, that also really inspired me too, because I saw people like working and hustling. Like, I am here to get a paycheck. I'm going to do my best, you know, take these hours, you know, get up as much money as I can, and then try to do the thing that I really want to do, like whether it's, you know, animation for me. My friend was very much into agriculture, and you'll kind of see how that weaves in. Fashion design, you know, all these things. So basically, from that, I had met my friend Sam, and she had worked in sustainable agriculture. And to kind of backtrack a little bit, in high school, I only applied to 2 schools. So
I love that. I
yeah, I
only applied to like
really,
three.
yeah, I was just like also because I really didn't know what I was doing. I was very much like academically I was very good, but there was no the only guidance I really had was from like my one science teacher.
Wow.
And like she was just like, okay, like you're really good at this. Like I was in like the AP courses or whatever. She's like, take this course, and then you can do science or whatever. So I was just like, well, yes, I wanted to do science, but then like I kind of would do like Discovery Channel stuff where they're like making the 3D models like to explain things or so I think that's kind of where I got my inspiration as far as like art and science is concerned. So I applied to SVA and realized like, oh, they only have majors, they don't have minors. So I couldn't really do science, but I can get a really good, thorough experience as far as like animation is concerned and everything. And then I also was looking at the University of Hartford.
Oh, cool.
And yeah. And the only reason why I was looking at those two schools and not something like the West Coast or something like that is because my mom was like, you are going to like stay here. You're going to stay local.
Oh, this is so funny.
Like,
I didn't know our stories like overlap that much. My mom was also like, you're staying in New York.
yeah.
At least you had Connecticut out there. My mom was like, figure out what school you can go to in this state.
Like I really was just like, I need to just get off of Long Island like a little bit and just see other things, like because my family traveled, so I was just like, okay, like there are cool places out there, but like financially it just wasn't in the cards. So I
Yeah.
was just like, all right. So yeah, I did those two. I went to a few different like portfolio reviews and there were other schools that like accepted me, but again, it was like, yeah, that's not really in the cards. So I got accepted to SVA, which was great because I really didn't have any other driving force. Like I heard about animation. I didn't even know that I was going to go into animation. I was just like, oh, there's this cool art thing. And then my friend was like, you'd be really good at animating. And I'm like, all right, cool.
That's
I'll
so funny.
apply.
Also, I want to interject and ask you, how come you did 2D instead of 3D?
You know, I think again it was like the lack of information and ignorance as
Okay.
far as like applying for colleges, and like ignorance not on like, oh, you should have known like to look up things a little bit more, but again it was just kind of like there was never anyone to tell me like, oh yeah, animation's a job, like filmmaking is a career,
Yeah.
like it's not a big thing. Like for me, it was almost thought of like I played sports and stuff like that. I was going to like go to a bigger college and like play some sports, like do really well academically, again, kind of in that science realm. But as far as like animation or any type of art, I was like just lost. I was just like, oh, here, like some people I think had referred me to like graphic design, and I was like, no, I don't want to do graphic design. I
Yeah,
want to like
definitely. No shade, but no.
yeah. I was just like, no, 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 I don't want to do like that type of work, like that type of art. It's fine. But yeah, I think I just was kind of like almost a weird roulette, and I was like, oh, animation, this sounds fun. And I like read all the courses in the animation like section, and that's what I kind of hyper focused on. And I was like, all right, I'll apply for this.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of how weird tangent of how art and science kind of
Oh,
wraps in
right.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of like back to when I worked in retail, my friend worked in sustainable agriculture, and she was like, hey, they have like a job opening at this New York State park. So I was like, oh, yeah, like I can definitely do outdoors. Like, I need to get out of like the mall and like this awful culture of like picking up, just clothes being thrown everywhere.
Oh my gosh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so basically I applied there as a horticulture intern, and from there I was just like, oh well, this is going to be my minor. I was like, I'm like young 20 something, I don't even remember like where I was probably at least like 22, 23, and I was like, oh, they always say this is like the time to like explore and do things. So I was just like, I don't really have like much risk involved because again, I had, saved up all that money from working. retail, and also my previous job. So yeah, so I was just like, I'll apply there, and I ended up staying there for like 4 years.
Yeah, you were doing that
Uh,
stuff for a while.
yeah, I in total I farmed for at least like 5 6 years. And it took me all over Long Island. It gave me like a newfound like sense of how pretty it could be, because I really was not like, I was not about it. I was just kind of like, my hometown, like, but it it also helped me too to like develop my eye as far as
Mm.
like being aware of things, because I started to draw a lot of like vegetables and like just really kind of experience what it's like to kind of do like super hard labor like that, because I to be honest, the reason why I really got out of it too is because I'm not like super cut out for it. Like it is very, very hard. And I was just like, oh gosh, like there were some parts like beekeeping or like growing like culinary mushrooms. Like we worked with a lot of high end like New York City restaurants, Brooklyn restaurants. So any foodies out there, like yeah, we were kind of like in that high end realm. And I was picking vegetables and delivering, into the city in Brooklyn.
Oh, that's so
So
interesting.
yeah, so it was a lot of really good food. Again, it kind of goes back to like the cooking channel and my love for like just tasting really delicious food, as well as also meeting a really awesome group of people, but also again finding my eye for like just art in general and what I could do with my artwork,
Mhm.
until like a studio contacts me.
So during
And
this time,
that's
you were
what kind
still
of
applying for studios?
mhm.
Okay.
Like I was still, that's where that whole like 1 year thing comes. Like the last year that I had worked in farming actually. So kind of fast forward to my last year, actually, I ended up working with Isabella Rossellini. So she's an actress, model, scientist. She got her master's degree recently, and she basically like found me like in the fields like picking tomatoes. And my boss Patty was like, "Hey, she animates like," and not realizing it, she was just like, "Oh," she's like, "We should talk and like collaborate." So I was like, "All right, cool." Because again, I was still just applying. Oh, the previous ones that I had applied to, I think it was either because my portfolio was lacking or the studio closed.
Oh, wow.
That's what yeah, like I think I was trying to like look for soup to nuts. And I think they were in like Boston or something like that, but I don't think they're around anymore. Like things were just not really working out in my favor in that
Hmm.
realm. So I was just kind of like, well, still collect the paycheck, still make the art, still make those connections, even though it doesn't really make sense to everybody else. So yeah, so with Isabella, she said she had a play that she was doing called the Link Link Circus, and it was about animal behavior. And she needed me to animate some of the like experiments that she was trying to explain in the play. So as I was farming, like I would go home and basically just animate the scenes that she needed me to do. And then when I came back the next day, like I would farm, maybe see her and kind of be like, oh, hey, like I have, some rough drafts or, some pencil tests to show you. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. So like that's kind of how we developed our relationship
Cool.
and how I got myself back into animation by way of my passion for art and science, which I didn't think that anyone else would have, but it just kind of was like I sticked to my guns on that one and kind of
Hmm.
took a chance. But yeah.
And sometimes it's just like that's just how you have to be. Like I know many times people were telling me like, "Oh, why don't you try teaching or try this or like all these career
Mhm.
pivots." And it's like I know you'll probably think like I'm being stubborn, but it's like I kind of think this can work this way. I think I can do this, you know?
Yeah.
And
It,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just about to say exactly. Because
Yeah.
like if you can't go the like original traditional route of just like applying and then getting the job at a studio that you want. It's just like, well, I have to kind of make my own happiness right now. Like, so.
Yeah,
But,
and I think too enough in animation, I think there's two things. Like we've seen this whole like instant gratification and almost overnight and instant success. And we have some of those people
mm-hmm,
that we may have graduated with. I definitely graduated with in my department
mm-hmm,
that, they were like the ideal thing. Like they got the job out of college. They were like all set up in California or whatever, working on stuff, or they were working at VFX studios in the city or in Brooklyn.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, why am I struggling so hard? Like, in comparison to everybody else, you're like, damn, like I knew that I wasn't like their level, but I didn't think I was
Mm-hmm.
this bad to where like I can't get something. And I just see
Yeah.
like enough with the Twitter conversations I observe in some of the Discord stuff, and not to invalidate those people's feelings, but it
Mm-hmm.
definitely is hard breaking into the industry. And I just don't
Oh,
know why it has to be so hard for us. And I'm saying us as like Black people, but I just think it's
mm-hmm.
just hard. And especially like, as you were saying, when we were coming out of high school trying to study and learn animation, there wasn't that much guidance in doing that. Now,
No.
the market of like breaking in an entry level, it's overwhelmingly saturated. But that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that still it should be that hard. It's like we're all trying to get into like these 5 studios, if there's 5, who knows anymore. And
Yeah.
and it's like it is super competitive, but I just wish people wouldn't take it so much as like a personal offense,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
start to like put themselves down and their skill sets and be like, well, nobody wants me, or I'm done with animation or anything like that. Like it took you and I like years to get to
Mm-hmm.
a place where like we were feeling comfortable and confident in what we were doing. And then even still
Mm-hmm.
years from that to be like, I could almost do this on autopilot, like almost,
Yeah.
And then as we're talking, it's been 10 years since graduating college. Not saying that we wish 10 years for anyone to reach this point, but it was like kind of 25 ish, would you say 26, where you were like, okay, things have been falling apart for like the last couple years since I graduated college, but like 25, 26 is like they're falling into place a little bit. And then
Mm-hmm.
a couple years after that, you're like, okay, I can see the pieces now. I can see what they're trying to portray. And it's just no one's trying to hear that at 22. I understand that too, but I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just so real. That's just what the experience is. So let's fast forward a little bit. What are you doing now? Because in me watching your tweets, if you want people to follow you, we'll get into that later. For
Mm-hmm.
like, is it like a year you've been doing like coding, and you've been doing, is it like what, C plus plus, right? Is that it?
No, so I don't. CSS,
CSS.
which is like, yeah, C plus. Oh, C plus is like way harder, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
probably. I think C sharp is kind of like the video game realm. So if anyone's interested in like animating video games, I know that's like. I'm pretty sure that's the language that they usually use.
So what is it that you code then?
I do a lot of like website stuff. So like I use like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Gotcha.
So for the past year, I think I've put that out there that I can do that stuff because I found that that was also like a lucrative um, skill to have.
Absolutely.
And of course, I mean, we see now, especially with tech, I mean, it's just booming even more than it was before. So, yeah, so I started to like really push that along with my animation because the program that I love to use is After Effects. And After Effects uses, it's, I guess you can call it a language. It's like After Effects expressions.
Yes.
And basically, expressions was based off of JavaScript. So that's kind of how I went like really down the rabbit hole of like coding and stuff. But like I've actually been like very interested in computers and coding since like MySpace days. So I
Yeah.
was like manipulating, yeah, you totally like
Yeah. I was so into that too. And then like for me, we had a Mo scripting class, which is basically
Mm-hmm.
programming, for those of you who don't know, for like the 3D animated software. And I
Mm-hmm.
really did like that. But
Yeah.
what got me with programming is that programming is just so finicky. You have one comma or something, and like your whole code starts screaming at you. I'm like, y'all could have this. Y'all could keep it.
Yeah. It's like fatal error, and you're like, oh my gosh, my computer's gonna blow up. Like
It's like,
it's
tell me
that
what's
kind of like,
wrong.
and you're just like, oh, I just spelled something wrong, or like didn't put a capital letter somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, coding, it's funny too, because I think of coding and like animation in a kind of like similar way, because it's like if you don't do an animation like a certain way, like in a certain way, as in like conveying a mood or something like that, like we are tweaking
Mm-hmm.
until we actually like get what we want. Whereas like with code, I guess it's kind of like more like writing in a way, you know? So it's kind of just like, oh, you got to like tweak and make sure that everything is perfect before you can ship whatever you're trying to do. But yeah, I really started to like lean into that a lot, just in case, because I was just like, I don't know like what like animation wise, because like studios, I mean, in New York, it just seems to be getting smaller and smaller
Yes,
in a
so
way
many
from like,
studios are closing or have closed.
mm-hmm, yeah, like I think World Leaders, right? Didn't they do like Venture Brothers before like they like I think it was maybe like Titmouse or something that like kind of took some of those things over. But I remember like World Leaders was one that I wanted to apply to. They're gone. Yeah, it's just it I just always make sure that like uh I'm not like stuck in a
Mm-hmm.
way. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I always kind of like make sure that I have some type of out or um backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of like as much as you can do as like an animator and an artist is, you know, just kind of find your way to keep moving.
Yeah.
Because like as you said, like it's really easy to be discouraged. You're like 20, you know, early 20s, and you're just like, why haven't I gotten a job yet? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on? Like, what is wrong with my portfolio? You think it's instantly, you know, like we're our own worst critics, you
Yep.
know, like it's something wrong with me, and not so much like, oh, this is just how the industry works. Like, when I worked for Isabella, I remember before I had worked for her, like I had applied to Nickelodeon, and then they got back to me like right in the middle of me doing the Link Link Circus project. So it was kind of just like, oh, this is awesome. I really want to work here. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, like I've already committed to something. Like I, you know, so it's like things like that where it's just the way that it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's just like you hope for more opportunities like that or something even better, you know, who knows? But yeah, so I just always keep myself open. I still keep in touch with the people that I interviewed with and things like that. So, you know, just in case, because I'm still like a contractor, like freelance animator. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So I just also, before we move into the second part of the show, you
Mm-hmm.
shared some of your future goals, and you said one plan is to be a technical director. And can you elaborate why that's kind of on your to-do list now?
So, this is where the coding and animation kind of come in. So I found out, well, when the pandemic started, so I had lost my job with Isabella because, you know, she didn't have any shows to do. So
Mm,
essentially, I didn't have any more animations to do.
gotcha.
But basically, there was like a whole bunch of like black and brown community groups that were popping up. That was like really cool, like Rise Up Animation, and like you're putting on like a lot of like panels and stuff like that. So I was just like looking at every little bit of animation that I haven't like explored or knew about yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out about, I was starting to get into 3D stuff, and I was like teaching myself. And then I learned that there was a position called a TD,
Mm-hmm.
technical director. And basically, they use Python to like basically like connect they're kind of like the liaison between like the creatives and like the animators and then the developers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like basically that tie between the two. And like I've always really enjoyed that kind of sense of like being a part of a bigger team, because I think for most of my like career so far I've mostly just been working by myself, but like also like I do have other people that I do work with, and I was just like, oh well, maybe you can do this, or you know, like I love finding like little hacks like that. So I was just like, oh, tea sounds like right up my alley. So yeah, that was something that I was like really interested in, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna learn Python. So
Yeah, they
that's kind
started
of like,
teaching Python at SVA, I think, like our junior year.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
but
because
I ended up getting the Mel scripting instead of a Python. And it was one of those
mm,
situations where you try to change the course is going to mess up your whole schedule type of thing. So it's like,
yeah.
but like Mel script was like a dying language at that time. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean
That's
with
pretty
most
cool.
programming.
Yeah, that too. Because you said JavaScript and now Flash is basically kind of like obsolete. So are you still using
Hmm.
JavaScript in your stuff? Or you have to because it's After Effects?
So with After Effects, I still use like After Effects expressions. That's still like the go-to for that. I don't really use like Flash or Adobe Animate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I never really like got too much into that realm just because I couldn't find like my voice in terms of like style that I really like enjoyed or felt comfortable with. So I've just always gravitated towards After Effects. But yeah, that's what I mostly use right now. And then what's cool is that you can actually animate using CSS
Mm.
and JavaScript, like on websites. So like if you think about like loading screens or different transitions when you're like going around a website, like that's an animator position, kind of like doing it with code. It's a lot harder. There's a lot of like easier tools to use, excuse me. And I actually learned about that too, because that's pretty much how what I do at my job now. So
Gotcha.
um, yeah,
So yeah, that was the interview portion. It was great. I hope that wasn't too nerdy heavy for people because I just like to nerd out and I like talking about codes and stuff like that too. I
yeah.
think I mean I don't know because at the time of like being a senior in high school, if like SVA didn't accept me, I don't know if I really would have gone into like writing, creative writing, or if I would have tried
Hmm.
my hand at computer science because I also at the time had really liked MySpace coding and like
Yeah.
completely breaking my MySpace page and then building it back up and hiding the sound so people couldn't like just being really obnoxious teenagers. So that was kind of my two things, but then I got into SVA. So there was
Yeah.
that. Who knew? Who knew? But I like the role of a TD a lot,
Hmm.
and they are so important. Again, I will say, like, there's all these names in these film credits,
Yeah.
and people, unfortunately, all we know are like the actors, the directors, maybe a producer, even a voice actor or something. But it takes a lot of people to get these movies made, to get these video games made.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we're just, trying to provide some more insight to who those people are. The second
Yeah.
half, if it's a half, we'll see, of the show is gonna be about your favorite movies or your favorite animated movies and TV shows. And we're gonna
Cool.
start off with my background. 101
Yeah.
Dalmatians. Um, I gotta ask you this. In case there's anyone that hasn't seen this movie, can you try and summarize what it's about?
So basically you follow like these two, there's two main dogs, Pongo and Perdita. They find themselves after their owners become like entangled in the park, kind of a nice in our age, very stereotypical way of meeting someone now. It's just like, oh, your dog ran to me. But I it's very interesting like how old 101 Dalmatians is.
Yes.
And probably during that time, it was just kind of like, oh, what an interesting way like to meet someone. So they meet in a park, and they eventually they become a couple, and then also Pongo and Perdita, and they wind up having 101 Dalmatians. But there is this evil woman, Cruella de Vil, who is basically someone that PETA would totally take down in a heartbeat if she was around today.
Oh my gosh, that's one way to put it.
And she loved her fur coats, you know, her long, exaggerated cigarettes and stuff. And once she saw those Dalmatians, she was like, I'm going to make a coat out of them. So it's very much a kind of like, even though it's like dogs, it's like a cat and mouse kind of like roundabout of the dogs basically trying to get the safety away from this evil woman and kind of like their adventures around town. So yeah.
Why is it one of your favorite movies?
You know, I love dogs, and I think like when I was like a young kid, like we didn't get a dog until like I feel like when I was like in 6th grade or so. But my mom loves telling me this, like telling this story of like how on my birthday I had basically just went around to, I guess, like all my aunts and uncles and was like, they're like, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, 101 Dalmatians. Like, so, so I got 4 VHS tapes.
Oh my gosh.
101 Dalmatians. Yeah. So it was just like, well, if I break one, there's always another one.
That's so great.
Yeah. So I am, and that still kind of like translates today, like very hyper focused, like to the point of just like if someone asks me something like, oh, what are you doing? And it's just like, I'm doing like coding, and then, you know, kind of go off on this long tangent about it. But yes, I feel that was very much like my childhood is I got very fixated on like particular movies. And 101 Dalmatians was it until I got a dog. So
how'd you feel about the live action one?
The live action one, like I think at first, like trying to think back to when I was younger, like at first I was kind of like, yes, there's another 101 Dalmatians coming out. But like at the same time too, I was just like, live action, like how is this gonna work? Like, you know, I really didn't understand the filmmaking process at the time, but I really enjoyed it. I think they're probably, if there's any movie that has started off as a 2D animation and then turned into a live action film, that is the one that I will like go for 100%. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really care for any of the other like live action things that have popped up, especially over the years.
Right.
You know, I think it's great that they're bringing it back, but at the same time too, it's just kind of like, you know, it's not for me. Like,
yeah, clearly.
I grew up.
It's kind of weird because
Yeah.
it's like pandering to us, but it's not for us at the same time, you know?
Yeah. I think they're trying to get us like, oh, they probably have kids now. Like, they can show their kids this movie. But I'm just like, I actually will just whip out the VHS tape
Right.
and put it right in. Like, you know, so, and yeah, I've been kind of trying to do that. Like, I have like nieces and nephews and stuff. So, and young cousins. So, no, actually, no, don't have a niece and nephew, cousins. And I've been trying to get them to watch these movies. But they're on dogs. It's like Paw Patrol.
Oh, yeah. Paw Patrol is a big deal. I will not be talking about Paw Patrol on this show. I'm sorry, unless I get like a child, and then maybe it could be like a bonus thing, and we just talk about Paw Patrol.
Yeah,
but I don't see it happening. Did you used to watch the TV show like on the Disney Channel and like ABC?
I did. I feel like by that point, I like. When did the TV show come out? To be honest, like,
that's kind of like a mid to late '90s thing.
I feel like I probably didn't, only because like when I was younger, I only had a certain amount of time with the TV that actually had like full cable. So like I had to pick and choose what I was gonna watch.
That's
so yeah, like during that time, my TV time frame was definitely like Rugrats, Real Monsters kind of hour block. So yeah, so I really didn't like watch that, or weirdly enough, didn't even like go back to it when I was older.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I
Started getting.
feel going back to it, like how much it holds up. I enjoyed it at the
Mhm,
time. I did,
mhm.
but that's kind of it for me. How do you feel about the Cruella
Yeah,
trailer that came out recently?
I have not seen that, but I have heard about it, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you should see it because I'm very interested in what people are going to say about it. Like I personally
Mhm,
don't feel that excited about it. Um
mhm.
and I don't think that's anything
Is
against the actress per se.
mhm.
I'm just kind of like that's it. I'm just like, okay. I don't know. I feel like they could have done something else. I don't know.
Uh, well, I guess maybe if I see the trailer, maybe I may, because I don't even know who's like. I just heard about it. I was just like, oh, they're making Korea film, and I was just like, oh, cool.
So for
Um,
me, it kind of is like it reminded me, I didn't even see this either, but like of Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
yes.
So it's kind of like something makes Cruella snap to become Cruella,
Oh,
you know? But I'm again like this is Disney, so I don't know how dark they're actually going to get or how much they're going to push the envelope
hmm.
to satisfy someone like me. Cuz I'm like if you're going to go there, please go for it. Um
Yeah,
but Cruella isn't really even on my radar of like villains or Disney villains. So
yeah.
I don't know. I might watch like some spoiler reviews when it comes out and then watch it.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like I would definitely just watch it because I just haven't watched anything that would be of any remote interest to me. I feel like as of late, like I mean, I watched Soul and I watched Canvas that was on Netflix, and I really enjoyed those. But like, there hasn't been. I mean, also because of 2020, everything just halted. There wasn't like anything that really has been like gripping me.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would suggest
New.
to kind of check out Over the Moon only because of
Ah.
your food stuff and the food just looks
Mhm.
so good in that movie. It looks so good. I'm like, man, if they didn't do anything else right, they got this like Chinese dinner spread, like traditional,
Oh,
really down.
yes.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
I
Um,
will definitely be checking that out.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, I have other feelings about it, but I think that is still worth talking about, like, you know.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
moving forward, Ponyo. Um,
Yes.
tell the people a little bit about Ponyo.
So, Pile is like my favorite Studio Ghibli film. Like,
Interesting. Okay.
I just really love the like ocean. I feel like that's the first time that like an ocean atmosphere just like they just got it right. Like Little Mermaid was like getting there. Like there was like really cool things like sea anemones and like, crustaceans and stuff. But like seeing, I mean, they usually do a lot of things right that feel just like so realistic, even though they're in a 2D format.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like the environment just like really took me there. And yeah, that's the first time I think too that I really was like, wow, background, like I really started getting into like background design.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like that didn't really happen, at least from when I like was watching 101 Dalmatians and just how they like framed Cruella de Vil and things like that. There were just like really key moments that I was just like, wow, this is like really awesome. So yeah, Ponyo, I have not watched that film in quite some time, but I remember like totally like the feeling that I got like watching it, and I was just like, wow, I just love the entire atmosphere of this. Like the character is really cute, Ponyo's really cute. Like, yeah, they just yeah, go
So
watch it
do you think you
if you
can
haven't.
summarize it in like one sentence?
So like Ponyo's kind of like, isn't she like this little like tadpole that kind of like eventually goes onto land, and she finds like a little like friend and stuff that she kind of like wanders around with.
Choi.
Like I kind of like remember like that being like the main thing that I was like drawn to because I love the like friendship that they had.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Okay, so
yeah, I'm totally.
I watched it for the first time this weekend. I've started it
Oh,
a bunch of times, but I was trying to make it through some of the stuff that you have here, and I actually didn't do a good job. But I did watch Ponyo because it was between
mhm.
Ponyo and Fantastic Planet, and I was like,
Oh,
I'm gonna go with Ponyo, and then if I could make it to Fantastic Planet, which I actually still do want to watch, but anyways, so
mhm,
I watched Ponyo for the first time over the weekend, and I was like,
mhm,
I just remember when it was coming out, people were referring to it almost like the Little Mermaid, and I was
mm,
like why, but then watching it, I'm like, okay, because she starts off in the sea as like a sea creature, whatever, and then
mhm.
she gets legs and arms like Ariel, a mermaid, and now she's a human on land or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I think you guys were really pushing it by calling her like a mermaid, though, a little mermaid.
Yeah,
Um,
I felt the tadpole. Like
yeah,
that's
no,
what
but
she
she
looked like
looks
to
like,
me.
yeah, she actually does look like a tadpole. And then
Yeah.
what happens is, what what kind of got me charged up, and this is a spoiler alert, so maybe fast forward like a minute or two, was the fact that they're five in this movie, and
Hmm.
they basically have this moment of like sacrificial proclamation of love. And I'm like, these are 5 year olds, they're five, and you're like, do you promise to care for Ponyo for all of your days or whatever? And I'm like, for the next 95 years you're asking him, I don't know, like what. And Ponyo just like, I love Sasuke, and I was like,
Yeah.
you're five, you probably love everybody. Like, I don't know, you love almost anybody. So yeah, I was like texting my friend Jen, who's no stranger to the show, and I was just
Mhm.
like, I just watched this movie and I need to say these things. Like, I need to say these things, but it is a really cute movie, and to your point, I mean, Ghibli movies, I feel like they always do a great job with like their sense of magic and their sense of
Mhm.
space, like making things feel very vast. And
Yeah.
I think they did a great job with the ocean too, because they didn't really make things too appealing. Like, I was still kind of grossed out
Mhm.
by some of the sea creatures,
Yeah.
and I was like, ugh, but I still could like appreciate that. So I don't think it's as high up on my list as it is on yours, but I respect it. I could take it for what it is. I wouldn't be mad to watch it again, but I was just like, these are
Mhm.
freaking 5 year olds. Like, can we, can we not?
Well,
um,
like also too, like I always think about it. It's just like I guess as you like grow older too, like everything, like you just look at things and you're just like, this is so over dramatic. This is ridiculous.
yeah.
Like, so like, no, I totally get your point on that. But then I also see like, oh, like when you're a kid
Hmm.
and you have like, I mean, even if you're a teenager, you have that like sense of like, I love him and like, we're gonna get married and all this stuff. And you're just like, what are you talking about? Like, you're not even in high school yet.
Yeah. I
Like,
honestly feel like if they were at that like 14-ish age or something like that,
mhm.
I would have had I would have been okay, because I'm like, yeah, teenagers, you always whatever. But it was just like kind of strange, because I'm like, essentially, these are freaking five. Like, you just think of a 5 year old, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm all for magic, and I think maybe like, I think this also came out when we were already like high schoolish, college age or something like that. I think so,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
2008,
Yeah.
I believe I read. So maybe if I myself were like in fifth grade or eighth grade, even ninth grade, I probably would feel a bit differently about it for the first time compared to like now in 2021. But
Yeah. Like again, I haven't watched it in a while. So
yeah.
like I can't speak really so much on a like storyline if I would like feel the same way.
Yeah.
But I know I feel the same way about the environment and I'm like, this is quality. Like, yeah.
So the last movie you shared was Fantastic Planet. And is this like, because to me, it looked like something from the past, like the 60s almost or
Hmm.
something, right?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
Like, I was like, this is very trippy. I think that's why I was like, I'm gonna watch Ponyo because I don't think I'm ready for this kind of ride. But I didn't even
Yeah.
look up anything about it. So please tell me that you can tell us a little bit about what this movie is about.
Yeah. So it is what I love about older films is that they really deal with heavier topics.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of like a like racial disparity. Like there are like these aliens and then there's like this human that they find and like there's definitely like with this one it's kind of hard to explain too because it's science fiction and then it's also like super psychedelic, so like sometimes you're just like what the heck is going
Yes.
on, but like I get what you're trying to get at. um so yeah, basically they uh so like all the grown-up aliens are just like, oh no, like humans, like that is disgusting. And then of course like the human is like a child and then she meets a alien friend. And it you kind of are taken through the story of like that and kind of trying to break down these like uh racial barriers, so to speak. So yeah, it's a very trippy movie. I love sci-fi, just because I feel like a lot of sci-fi touches on things like that. Like if anyone's ever read like Octavia Butler or like Parable of the Sower, things like that. It's you're just like, wow, all of this world is like totally like it doesn't make any sense, but like the core themes, like as far as storytelling goes, like that's why I love Fantastic Planet. And weirdly enough, I didn't know about this film. I had to do a project for my first year at SVA, and that was the movie that I picked.
It sounds like a history of animation movie. Like it really does. When I saw it, it looked, what's it, Yellow Submarine. That's what it gave me, those kind of
Hmm.
vibes. Yeah.
So what's cool though is that it's not 2D, so it's kind of like a cutout,
Oh, okay.
which is weird. Yeah, but it's like super smooth and like it just it's just a really cool like art, like artistically and also historically, I feel like. And yeah, just not only because I like the genre, but because of like again the themes, I really gravitated towards that and was like, more people should see this. Like we should be, like I'm all for like, happy endings and, magic and fantasy, but also I think as I grew older and also as I started to go through SVA, I noticed that storytelling could be a completely different expression, form of expression. And I feel like we're seeing that a lot more now.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least we're trying to with some films, like is to get like these hard pressed topics talked about in a medium that is somewhat digestible for hopefully some people. um, like not in a comfortable way, but just like something that you can watch and understand and be like, this is a problem, or like this is what's going on in the world, like something to make you think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I
but
mean, it's gonna be on my list for the listeners out there. Ponyo and Fantastic Planet is on HBO Max.
oh,
So,
nice.
mm-hmm. Don't even
Didn't
have
even
to
know
go
that.
too far. Yeah. For it. So now, moving on to some TV shows. Something else I didn't watch, which is no surprise, is Cowboy Bebop.
So this was my first anime that I was introduced to in middle school. So I had my best friend Dexter. He lived next door, and like I would go over there like every Saturday and Sunday. We'd play video games, we would like skateboard, and then we would watch an anime. So I didn't really like know too much about anime at all because again, I had like a specific time block, and like yeah, my family wasn't into that like at all. So very much grew up on like American TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to Dexter's house, like he was playing things like Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball. So again, I saw this like completely different side of animation that I've only like start to notice in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Cowboy Bebop was like one of the first ones that I was like really engrossed in. And basically, you follow a bounty hunter, Spike Spiegel, and his crew, and they go around, catching bad guys and stuff. Again, another like sci-fi s type uh, anime slash animation. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite moment from the show?
Hmm. I would have to say, to be honest, any like interaction with like Ed, who is my favorite character. I just really love them like and their interactions because it softens everybody. So like, you have Jet and Spike and they're kind of like super hard, like rough around the edges, like, smoking their cigarettes and having like ramen cup of noodles because they can't afford anything. And then you have like Faye, who's like a very like voluptuous woman. Um, and she's even a little rough around the edges too. And then you have like Ed, who's this like teenage child and just super focused on like hacking and coding. And she has this really cute dog. And like just the interactions of like how um they'll go from like one character and then when they talk to Ed, like it you could definitely see like how they kind of like soften up around a very like adult centric world, and especially something as rough as like being a bounty hunter and you're living like paycheck to paycheck kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like definitely those moments I really love. And yeah, I honestly, I love the music. Like, I think that's always like whenever there's like a new score that comes in, I feel like they did a really, really good job of like taking you through that arc uh, with the music. Because it's like, it's Seatbelts. They're like a jazz band, which is really cool. The opening song is called Tank, and it's like excellent. So,
I mean, that's one thing I know is when people usually love their animes, they usually love a lot of the music that's associated with it. Um, the next show
well, I
that you
grew up
talked
on
about,
jazz.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was saying like I grew up like with jazz and stuff like that because I lived at my grandparents. So, they had a bunch of jazz records, and then also 101 Dalmatians. The opening credits is like by far my favorite, and I wish they would bring back longer openings like that because the intro song is really good. But
It's all connecting.
yeah.
Yeah, another show that you told shared with me is Adventure Time.
hmm
Talk about
Yeah.
it.
The characters I just love. I love how like simple it is. I remember the first time a friend of mine had showed it to me. It was kind of like when I was starting to apply for schools. Uh, this guy that I was friends with at the time, Tom, he was applying. He was a little bit older than I was, and he was applying to SVA. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, have you seen like this thing on YouTube called Adventure Time?" And like it was super crude and like artistically, like it wasn't as like fleshed out as it is now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just remember like falling in love with just like the weirdness and randomness and words like mathematical and like I thought it was just like really cute. Again, I really love like the environment and stuff. I definitely refer to that when I'm working, even in my day job now. So yeah, it's kind of weird actually, like talking to you now. I feel like a lot of my favorite shows have to do with the love for the environment.
What's
Even
so
though I
great? Go ahead. Yeah, even though what?
Oh, I'm not good at perspective. I'm horrible.
You're not the first guest to say something like that. It's like, wow, now all my favorite stuff is like telling on me. Like it's
Yeah.
revealing some things about myself. Yeah.
So, yeah, I just really I think as long as you have really great world building and environment, because I think although it's like a slight envy, and also it kind of like pushes me a bit, because I'm just like, oh, you should try like doing more background designs, or you should like try to learn a little bit more about perspective. So yeah, it's kind of like a mix of that a bit, and also just like an appreciation for, you know, someone on your team that can do that really, really well. So, you know, it really plays into like, you don't have to be good at everything. There is a place for someone in animation.
Do you
So,
have a favorite moment?
not really with that one so much. I mean, I really like one of the first seasons where it was just like, I think the candy like turned into like zombies or something like that, and I thought it was like really cute and like really funny, like some of the gags that they put in there, like puns. But like, yeah, I to be honest, I think the only film that I can, or TV show that I can think of that has like my like favorite scene is Steven Universe, and it's Ruby and Sapphire's wedding.
Okay.
And
I'm
yeah,
very far
and
behind in that show and Adventure Time as well. So I don't know.
oh,
I'm not watching
sorry
them in
guys,
English.
spoilers.
Oh yeah, big spoiler. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna remember. I'm a person that like me personally. I don't really care about spoilers. Like you can, unless I explicitly say it, you can probably spoil things for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same way, because I'm like, I'm still gonna watch it anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
I
if
don't
you're
care.
telling me it's this good, like, I'm still gonna watch it.
Yeah, okay, so let's move on to you put both of these shows here, so I'm including it as a pair, but Avatar, The Last Airbender, and The Legend of Korra. You don't have to recap it because I did a whole episode about it. You don't have to
No,
do that.
yes, I remember that episode too, and I was like, oh my god, yes. And it's funny. Um, so because I feel like in that episode you said that like it was kind of like the first time really watching it all the way through.
Me,
Like you
I've
hadn't
never watched
really,
it. Yeah.
yeah, same. So only recently, like in the past like year and a half, I finally watched the entire thing,
Mm.
Avatar and Legend of Korra. So I was just, the reason why I didn't finish it when it came out was because I was working at the movie theater, and my schedule always coincided with it. So I got
No,
up to like a certain point, and then I was just like, oh man, like I can't watch the next episode. And then like,
that was it.
and like the movie, yeah, I was just like, I will watch it when it comes out on DVD, and then kind of forgot about it until now. So, but it is fantastic. Love Legend of Korra's backgrounds, because they really
Mm.
took a lot of time to look at the industrial period
Yeah.
and kind of fuse that in. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite character from either show or both shows?
Appa. I love the animals. Like
That's so
I love
great.
anything cute and fuzzy, and I'm just like, oh, you're so cute. Like, oh, actually, Prince Zuko, I am definitely like a Fire Nation
Oh, okay.
person. Yeah,
That's fun too.
yeah, I really like when uh people initially think like, oh, this character is awful, and like, but I always seem to see like the little bit of light. Yeah.
I was like, get
The,
Zuko some therapy. Like, why is he so mad? He's obsessed with Aang. It is driving me crazy. Like, I don't know. He needs a hug. Then by the end of the show, I was like, oh, he just needed a hug. He
yeah,
just needed a
yeah.
hug. Preferably
I'm
probably
like,
from his mom, but like, whatever.
yeah. I was just like, oh, they're like, also too, like, even they go on these like very adult missions and have to deal with all of this like very intense physical abuse after like each thing. I I think I really like kind of see that early on, and I'm like, oh, he's like a child and he's banished. Like his dad doesn't want him.
I
Like I
know.
was just like, dang, that's bad.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what you do, like that's like the antithesis of unconditional love. Like, and all he has is his uncle. So like, yeah,
A great
I
uncle,
really
though.
felt for him. Yeah, his uncle's awesome.
Great uncle. Yeah, so we're gonna keep it moving. Game time. One's gotta go.
Oh.
So, starting with 101 Dalmatians. Pongo was a dog. Perdita, who's also a dog. Roger, who's Pongo's owner. Or Anita, who's Perdita's owner. One has to go.
Oh, God. This is awful.
You got
because you're splitting the world. So if I get rid of someone, they may never meet.
Oh, okay. I was just like, the other people I think were going to be too easy. So I was like, let's just throw this in here.
All right. So yeah, this is very hard. I think I'm going to have to go with Pongo, even though I love him. And this is very upsetting. Because...
Yeah, why?
Like, Perdita is the mother, so she can birth still those 101 Dalmatians, hopefully.
With a different dad? A different Dalmatian dad?
Yep. We need her there.
Okay.
To procreate. And, like, I really hate the idea of breaking up those two because, dating's hard. Dating is hard.
Facts. Okay, on to Ponyo. So we have Ponyo, Susuke, Lisa, who's Susuke's mom, and Ponyo's mom.
Ooh. I think I'm going to go with Lisa.
Okay, that's fair. I would say she has to go because she left her 5-year-old alone to watch another 5-year-old. And told him he's the man of the house. So I was really going through it watching this. Yeah, I was like, he's 5. He's not the man of the house. Oh, man.
She really did do that. I remember that part now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
No, that was irresponsible, but okay.
Yeah, it's all magic. Like, it's all magic. Don't worry about it. Adventure Time. We have Marceline, Jake the dog, Princess Bubblegum, or BMO.
Definitely not BMO, because BMO's my favorite.
Yeah, I actually remember you having BMO stuff, I think.
Yeah, I just got a Switch dock of BMO that I found on Etsy.
Awesome.
So, I'm gonna have to go with Bubblegum. Like, she's okay. She's cute, but Marceline's cooler. Like, I really like her as a character.
Yeah, Marceline is way more interesting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go with Princess Bubblegum.
And for our last round, Aang, Katara, Korra, or do I even want to mention him? I'm gonna switch him out for Zuko.
Okay, so you said Aang, Korra, Zuko, and who else?
Katara.
I guess, unfortunately, I have to let go of Aang.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because, again, I feel like the hardships of, Katara and Zuko are, really intense, and, I feel for them. She lost her village. He's, exercised from, his community. And Aang just kind of popped up from being frozen.
I was gonna say, why did you pick Aang over Korra then?
Well, because she's a female main character, and I always think that's awesome. So I was like, no, we can't get rid of that.
Okay. We are starting to wind down. I have 2 more questions for you. Which animated character are you most like in the history of animation stuff?
So, I know you like told me about this before, and like I completely forgot about it, and now it's back. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, an hour
Hold
went
on.
pretty fast.
Yeah, it did. Hold on. Let me look at my wall and maybe see if I can. You know what? Agretsuko.
Who?
You ever watch that show? Agretsuko.
Mm-mm.
So it is on Netflix, and it's like a tiny red panda, and she works like a basic office job,
Oh,
but
yes.
she,
I was supposed to
yeah,
watch that. It's kind of wild. It's super cute, but you don't think the show is as insane as it is.
yeah. No, I totally feel like the Agretsuko of like internalizing like really crappy things happening at work and then releasing it through like something that people completely don't think that you would do it
Yeah.
as. And I actually like metal, so like when I grew up, like even though I grew up listening to like jazz and stuff like that, I picked up on like definitely like rock and like metal. So yeah, I like kind of like the mystery behind that, where you think she's just like, oh, she's so cute and nice, and then she like goes to the karaoke
Yes.
bar and turns into a completely different person.
Yeah, I was like, what
You
is
know,
this show? Where is this from? I was like, I completely forgot I was supposed to watch it.
yeah, it's pretty good. It definitely like the first season is, you know, it. I feel like with most first seasons, it's pretty like at face value with each character, but it kind of develops over time.
Cool.
Um, yeah.
So our last question is using animated characters, cast your biopic. So you can choose to do yourself, well, preferably you, and
Mhm.
then maybe like two family members or like a family member and a friend.
Like, is this like a an animated thing or like
Yeah, this is
a
an
live?
animated movie, and you can
Mhm.
only make this movie using other animated characters to play people in your life.
Ah, I would definitely have to see my sister because she's just super strange, and I think like the two of us together, yeah, we're just a mess.
Who would be your sister?
So, mm, like, I would have to pick a like a different animated character to kind of sub her in, or are you just saying like in general?
Yeah.
Um,
Who would play your sister? What cartoon character would play your sister?
I feel like she's definitely like kind of like Jake, like she's like super supportive, but like really weird. um, but yeah, and she has some like really like, you know, she kind of like brings things home, which is nice, and she's younger than me,
Okay.
so yeah,
So you're
yeah.
the red panda and your sister's Jake.
Oh, hold on. So, do you want this? Now I'm confused.
No, they don't
Do you
have to
want
be
this?
from the same show at all. Like this is
Cool.
yeah, this is Courtney biopic. So everyone exists in the same world according to this movie.
Awesome. Okay. And then, hmm, and then I think I would pick Marceline to be my girlfriend, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, just because, just like that, like very dark but interesting presence. Like I think that really explains my girlfriend. Like, like yeah.
Cool. I
So
mean,
and then
you could do another one if you feel it, but I think that sounds like quite a cast already.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so to wrap up, can you just tell the listeners if they want to learn more about you and what you've done or connect with you? I'm not going to ask you to say your email address or anything like that. But what are your social medias, your websites?
So I am super active on like Instagram and Twitter. So it's just my name at Courtney Pure. So pure as in like as in Peter. Some people I say pure and they're just like, what? They don't know how to spell it. So it's Pure.
Mm-hmm.
And from there you can actually like find my website and stuff like that. Any of like I do like some YouTube channels. I'm trying to get more into that and like breaking down some of my process, especially with After Effects expressions and things like that. Um, but yeah, you can totally check me out there. I'm always open and down to talk about pretty much anything: coding, animation, farming, growing plants. Is your plant dying? I know how to probably fix it.
Then
So
I definitely need to talk to you about some plants. My mom has a green thumb, and I definitely don't. And it's pretty upsetting because I thought like a plant was dying, and then I just gave it to her because I was over it, and it
Mhm.
has like new leaves growing, and I was like, wow, I thought we were cool. Like I thought I brought you back. Like clearly you were just hanging on by a thread for months with me. Um, One thing I actually did want to, now I'm kind of forgetting my idea. Oh, so because you also, which we didn't talk about, but you had like coloring books or something that you designed, like farm related or vegetable
Yes.
stuff. Is that still like
Yeah.
available if people want to check that out?
Yeah, so it's on Etsy. I have like a digital version of it now. I do have a few like physical copies, so like if anyone would want one or anything like that, just message me. But
Okay.
there are digital versions of that book on there, and it's called The Incredible Simple Guide to Companion Planting.
Oh, okay.
So what companion planting is basically like certain plants like to be next to each other based off of how much energy they take up. So like water and kind of nutrients or anything like that. Kind of a simple explanation. But
Very
yeah,
impressive.
it's a coloring book.
Yeah, thank you so much, Courtney. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah,
It's been long
thanks for having
overdue.
me.
Yeah, and we do like have to probably like proper catch up. Like I know everybody's saying that and like this virtual Zoom fatigue, all that's very real. I'll be the first one to tell you.
Oh
But
yeah.
we'll figure it out to have like an actual catch up because it has been a long time. Yeah.
I know. I feel like I haven't seen like anyone like I especially now that I like my job is completely remote. Like so even if things start to lift, I'm still at home
Oh,
like
really?
working. So yeah, yeah. So the company's remote first. They're
Oh,
actually
okay.
based in Vancouver.
Oh, cool.
So yeah. Hmm.
Cool. Yeah, well, I mean, we're not going to hold the listeners. I am going to wrap
Yeah.
up and say thank you again.
Thank you.
Didn't I tell you that was going to be such like a good and fun episode? Like, yeah, Courtney's just an amazing person that I happen to know. And I hope that by listening to her talk about herself and just also some of her favorite films that now you're maybe inclined to check it out. Um, Now that you're learning more about the different type of ways that you can be a part of an animation production or the industry without actually being an animator or being able to draw, even though Courtney can do both, she's starting to learn and is developing and strengthening her skill set as a coder and on that kind of tech side. And we're gonna just keep tabs on Courtney. She does these also things on Instagram that's kind of like in part like game reviews, but it's just like very aesthetically pleasing. And I hope when she listens to this, she hears me talk about like how cool I think these like Instagram videos she's doing would be, or they are. And I think that if she expands that a little bit to like YouTube, I think it would be equally aesthetically pleasing over there on a platform like that. So, anyways, if you enjoy the podcast, if you're listening, use the hashtag Simplyrobotixpod. As always, the website simplyrobotix.com is how you can find out everything about everything. I have been getting back to sending out my newsletters. So, in case you missed something or whatever, you might want to just subscribe to the newsletter. The Patreon is still going. I'm so grateful that, I'm able to be consistent with that and be consistent with the podcast and, all that sort of stuff. I think that's it. I can't tell you what's next because, as I've already said, I'm doing so much recording to make sure I just have this stuff to be out there. So I don't know which order this is going out, but you can just know that you're going to continue getting the stuff that you subscribed for, be it if you're watching on YouTube or Patreon or just listening through your favorite streaming platform to listen to podcasts. I'm going to make sure I keep giving you what you keep coming back for. Okay. Until next time.